What's up, guys? This is Cam with Fishing with Cam. I want to give a big shout out to Topwater Blow Ups. I appreciate the new gear I got in. I got my pro staff gear in today, some decals, some clothes, some lures, some tackle, things like that. You'll see a lot more reviews coming on their gear and their tackle here pretty soon. I'm pretty excited to be a part of their pro staff. And you'll be seeing me use their lures the rest of this season and hopefully the rest of my fishing career. They are a great company. Customer service is awesome. If you haven't heard of them, go check out their online site. Right now they've just got topwater lures, but they got some of the best topwater lures on the market right now. Check them out. I planned on going fishing today. Unfortunately, with the weather, we are experiencing some tornado warnings and watches. We got some pretty bad hail. I have no problem fishing in the rain. Have no problem fishing pre-storm. But I'm not big on hail. I'm not trying to get pelted out there. So instead, I'm going to show you guys a rig I use for my worm fishing. It's something I'm going to be getting into here pretty consistently, especially once the bass start spawning. In the areas that I fish, we have a lot of vegetation. We have a lot of down trees. We have a lot of stumps, grass, cattails, things like that. So worm fishing is very successful. The first thing I'm going to go over is my reel and pole setup. I use the Lew's Xfinity Speed Reel, and I have their Xfinity rod on that as well. I really like this setup. It's not something that's going to cost you $300, $400, $500. You can get this for a pretty reasonable price, and the quality of it is amazing. Now, this is a medium heavy rod with a fast acting tip, or fast action tip. So what that means is that with that fast action tip, you're going to feel all those bumps. You're going to feel the bottom. You're going to feel everything that you drag that worm over. But you're also going to feel all of those bites. You're going to feel every time that fish picks that lure up. But with the medium heavy rod, you're going to have enough backbone that whenever you set the hook, it's going to set firm, it's going to set hard, and you're going to know that you have a pretty good hook set. Remember, whenever you are setting the hook on a worm, do not let the fish travel with the bait. Once you feel that fish take it, reel your slack, set the hook. Don't let the fish swim with it. It's going to give a lot more opportunity for that fish to spit that lure out. And it's also going to give a lot more opportunity for the fish to move it around to where whenever you do set the hook, it may not set properly, or it may just get jerked out of their mouth. So reel the slack, set it right away. So I fish a Texas rig most of the time. I fish Carolina rigs whenever it comes to swim baits and some of the other soft baits like that. But this is my Texas rig setup. I'm gonna have about a 4 or 5 aught hook and a little bullet weight. I don't like big bullet weights unless I'm using it as a punch rig. I'll go over a punch rig here in a second, but this is going to be my typical setup right here. If I'm fishing in a lot of cover and I'm fishing in a lot of vegetation where I know that if I hook onto a fish, I'm going to be pulling a lot of that vegetation with me, I'm going to use 50-pound braid, and that's actually what this is. On the this setup I have right now, I have mono. I've got 15-pound mono. So it really depends if I'm fishing the wooded log area or I'm fishing vegetation. Depending on, do I need the clarity of the line? Are they going to be able to see it? Or do I need the strength to be able to pull them through the vegetation? Now, I've got 2 pretty typical worms that I use. I'm a big watermelon, green pumpkin style guy for this area. All right. So, I have the Yum Dinger, and then I have a Zoom trick worm. These are the 2 worms that I use pretty successfully in this area, and I'm always going to use them on a Texas rig. So what that's going to look like is I'm going to take the hook down inside just a little ways. I'm going to pop it out just like that. Alright, I'm going to flip it all the way around to where it covers the top notch of that hook. And if you look at where the hook lines up to the worm is where you're going to want to put that into the worm. So then whenever it comes out almost straight, right? And then what you can do is just right where that hook is at, just pinch a little bit to cover the tip of that. So now it's going to be weedless. So now whenever you're using this and you're fishing it in and out, it's going to be weedless. hopefully. So the one thing I really like about the Texas rig is its ability for the weight to slide, and that's going to give it a lot of versatility whenever this weight hits the bank, that it's going to allow this worm to kind of float freely. It's also going to allow that bass to come up and eat that worm without feeling the weight, without having that weight right on it. Now, you would hook this the exact same way. And earlier when I mentioned a punch rig, so a punch rig, I'm going to take this little bitty tiny weight, I'm going to replace it with a pretty fat bullet weight. And whenever I throw that in, and I may even put a bead right on top here, so that whenever this weight goes on there and I toss it in, the weight doesn't slide. And the goal of that is to punch it straight through the vegetation so that it can get to the bottom. And this is going to be successful in areas that I find with lily pads, where I know the water may be somewhat clear in the bottom, and yeah, you're going to have a lot of those stems and things like that. But once you get through the really thick portion of the lily pads, it should be pretty easy to get those out. So I'm going to use a punch rig. I'm going to use a lot bigger bullet weight. I might even keep a bead on top so that the weight can't slide at all, just enough to punch it through the top so that whenever it sinks down, you have access to all of that water below the lily pads. Now, one thing that I had mentioned in a previous video was the Googan Baits makes a really nice Ned rig for a worm. And that's something that I've got into here pretty recently, if I'm not fishing a Texas rig, is their Ned rig worms. What that's going to look like is that's going to have a little bitty jig here, and you're going to have just little 3.5, 4-inch worms that have rattles in them. And they are awesome. So one side is a watermelon color, the other side is a blue color, and you're going to see a lot of. I love the fact that there's that rattle in there. It's right here at the very end, but you're going to see a lot of really nice consistencies with this, fishing it in any cover that you can find. You're going to hook that just how you would really hook any of your worm setups on a jig. So, and I'm just going to push that straight through. So this is what that's going to look like, guys. So it's a little nice worm setup. It's really easy. It's a versatile. It is a little short stub nose worm. I mean, the size difference between the two, right, are pretty crazy. But I think that that works in a lot of situations where maybe you're fishing water with streams, you're fishing things that have a little bit more of like smaller bait than bigger bait. But this little guy has been awesome lately. It does have a rattle in it. It's so Googan Baits makes it, and they're awesome. They attract some monster bass even with the size of that lure. So anyways, guys, so that's all for me today. If you guys have any other questions about worm fishing, you guys want me to do a tutorial on techniques of worm fishing, just let me know. And as always, tight lines.